Hi, Andrew McNair here. Stop and think about the reality that everything you have, including time, resources, money, relationships, and possessions, all that you have because God has given it to you first. You might think you're the owner, but it's actually from Him, and it belongs to Him. This is called stewardship. That's not a word you use on an everyday basis, but it's actually one of the most common themes in the New Testament. So what is stewardship? The Holman Bible Dictionary actually defines stewardship as utilizing and managing all resources God provides for the glory of God and the betterment of His creation. Today, we're going to talk about why stewardship is so important. Why is it critical? James, Jesus' brother, has some harsh words for us to hear on this topic. So I want to jump right into Scripture. James says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted, and your garments are moth-eaten. Your gold and silver have corroded, and their corrosion will be evidence against you, and will eat your flesh like fire. You have laid up treasure in the last days." James 5:1-3. Ouch. So why is stewardship important? First, because God will hold us accountable for how we've stewarded our lives. And at the end, we don't want to see gold corroded at the end of our lives. In this passage, James is referring to unbelievers who are misusing their wealth and even taking advantage of the poor for their own gain. So you may be thinking, well, this is a good word for the lost here. No, this letter was written to the church, lest we think we are immune to falling prey to the same temptations that unbelievers are. There's a clear danger in this passage that wealth can corrupt us. And in this day and age, we have access to more abundance than any generation before us in history, especially in the United States. Greed is a temptation for all of us. If we aren't taking stewardship seriously, weeping and howling is all we can expect, because God's judgment will come upon us. Even as believers, we're going to have to give an account. James mentions that their riches will rot and garments will be eaten by moths. Of course, gold and silver can't rust. So what is he talking about? He means on the last day, when they stand before God, all that they have acquired in this life will melt away. And God will ask, "What did you do for me? How did you serve me? How did you love others with what I've given you?" And they will have empty hands, poor in love. Similarly, Paul says in Romans, we will all stand before the judgment seat of God, and each of us will give an account of himself to God. Each one of us is responsible for managing what God has given us, and He will hold us accountable for whether we use it to glorify Him, or did we glorify ourselves and make ourselves comfortable here on earth. Next, stewardship is important because time is fleeting. Eternity is at stake for the unbeliever. We're called to use what God has given to us to make eternal investments in those around us, not to build our own comfortable kingdom here on earth for us to take a throne in. James continues, "Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the criers of the harvesters have reached my ears, the Lord of hosts. You have lived on the earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the righteous person. He does not resist you." Again, some harsh words from James. And James describes how the rich were living in luxury, while the laborers who worked for them lived on the poverty level. The rich had immense resources to help the poor, but they exploited them to amass wealth for their own comfort and pleasure. Believers are often guilty of the same sins now. We're focused on the next new iPhone or most coveted vacation spot, while we shortchange the church of our tithes and offerings and ignore the needy. James is warning us against selfishness and greed, which infect us like a cancer, causing us to neglect the needs of others God calls us to minister to, and even take advantage of them for our own gain. We seek to gain more, to push people down to gain more instead of serving them, yet all this steals our joy and our peace. James says, "You have fattened your hearts in a day of slaughter." referring again to God's judgment. James is so harsh in this passage to warn us, lest we forget that this life is temporary. Eternity is at stake. Yet our fleshly nature, we are quick to focus on the present, the here and the now. We want a payday now. We want to enjoy the nice clothes right now, the latest car right now, and the most up-to-date home renovations, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but we want it right now. But the owner of all the gold and all the thousands of hills that understand that time erodes even metals and garments to dust. Instead, what does last for eternity is giving to the needy and those who can't repay us, but God sees and says he will reward us, making eternal investments in others by ministering to them, not using them for our own purposes. See, that's an investment that has exponential returns. But especially here in America, we get comfortable. We have swallowed a false gospel. If we exchange our get-out-of-hell-free card for Sunday church attendance and a Christianity that isn't costly, we forget that Christianity is costly. As God's stewards, we have to work to do here on earth and a responsibility to be mindful of. We have to be on guard against the very dangers that James is warning us against, including misusing what God has given us for our gain and our pleasure. But maybe you're just not there yet. Maybe the principle of stewardship hasn't sunk in. I encourage you to pray, get on your knees, and pray to God that he would change your heart about your assets. There are provisions from him, not your belongings. Die to yourself, die to your greed, and even die to the desire for more, even more comfort in order to experience true life through giving back to what God has given to you to give to others and be a blessing to others by sharing the gospel to them. If you want to dive deeper into a cultural shift of radical generosity that's occurring, to hear more about the giving generation, you need to check out my book, The Giving Crisis, which you can pick up a copy by clicking the link below. I want to thank you for watching this video to learn more about stewardship, but don't forget to click subscribe so you can learn more about our other videos on tithing and philanthropy, as well as check out our podcast, Rich, Young, and Powerful, on iTunes and other podcast platforms, because you can learn about other philanthropists who've given away their fortune. Until next time, remember to invest your life into something that will outlive it. Now that's living to give.